What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Winter Wolf's Den. Winter Wolf and King Z here, coming with you on a journey through Andor, episodes 4 and 5. Another double feature for you. Buckle up. Dude, what's going on, dude? Welcome back, man.
Thanks for having me back. It's been a fun journey so far. Let's knock out these next couple episodes and see what we all think.
True. And no further ado, then, let me give you the synopsis for Andor Episode 4, titled Aldhani. Luthen Rael takes Cassian Andor to planet Aldhani, asking him to join a sabotage mission there and to provide backup for a team he's already assembled. Cassian's reluctant, but Cassian's reluctant, but eventually agrees. Rael asks him to use an alias amongst the rebels. He goes with Clem. We don't know why. We might find out. Maybe not. Vel, the rebel group's leader, introduces him to the rest of the group, but keeps Rael's involvement a secret, so they don't know that she's not actually the big boss. They explain to Cassian they're planning on stealing the payroll. Actually, I believe Rael explained that, but the synopsis reads a little different here. Anyway, the plan for them is to rip off a payroll for an Imperial garrison, like an entire sector. It's supposed to be a big score from a key Imperial supply hub that's guarded by an airbase. So it's going to be a tough heist. They're going to have to put in their work to get it done. And the gimmick that they're going to use here is they're going to take advantage of a rare atmospheric phenomenon to pilot like a transport ship through a very narrow window and hope it kind of obscures their trail on the way out. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, Rael's posing as an antiques dealer meets with Senator Mon Mothma. So we get Mon Mothma for the first time in the show, and they discuss the challenges in keeping their operation off the books and out of sight of Empire eyes. Sadly, in the episode, we see Karn get fired from his mall security job, and he goes back to live with his mom. But we do get a trade-off here. We get newcomer Imperial Security Bureau Lieutenant Daedra Miro is seeking additional access and authority over the incident on Ferrix, but is faced with political opposition within from her colleagues and superiors. And just right before we even get into it, I think that was probably the best part of the episode for me, is I like Daedra. I think we're going to have a couple of things to talk about on the social commentary stuff with her when we get to her in the episode. And I think it's once again a case of marketing for the show would have been better off not letting people speak about their real life interests and should have just stuck to the show. But anyways, just initial thoughts on the episode overall without breaking into anything major just yet. What'd you think, dude?
The show stays with the course of the rest of the series, where it's a very slow burn. Where you can tell that we've taken a turning of the page, and we're moving on with the story, and we're getting into the heart, I believe, of what this season is going to represent.
Sure, I'd agree with you there, because are we in the middle third, or there's 12 to this one, right? Do we see 12? All right, so this is the second trilogy within the episode itself. Dude, bring me up to speed on the who wrote, who directed. Give me that stuff right quick before we jump in.
All right, so yes, this is the episode that is directed by Susan White. She is a seasoned veteran. Some of the things that you might know her from is she did an episode of Master of Sex.
True.
She did an episode of Broadway Empire.
Yep.
She directed Nanny McPhee Return, so the sequel of that. And her very first she also directed that's the word.
Got it.
Is 40 Minutes, a TV series documentary, one episode called The Gypsies Are Coming in 1988.
She's been around for a minute, so she's obviously been attached to productions, put in some paces. I don't know about the Nanny McPhee sequel. I won't speak to the quality of anything like that, but she's been around, so she's probably picked up a thing or two. And you know what? I think it shows in the episode. I didn't find any flaws in anything that had to do with the director's responsibilities. It was shot well. You could speak to more of that than I could, obviously, but what'd you think?
I was looking at it, watching the direction. The actors didn't really see a change in them. I didn't see a change in the quality of performance, so she stepped right in and did her job and kept to what the showrunner is looking to have.
True, and we were talking about continuity throughout this entire bit through our first two episodes of the show, so that's good that we see the changing of the guard for this sequence of episodes, and so far it seems to stand up to the scrutiny.
Yeah, and which they do with a lot of these type of TV shows. I mean, we could look at the Arrowverse on CW. Yep. Multiple directors, to include one of my favorites, Kevin Smith. Gets up there and he's directed an episode of Arrow. He's directed an episode of Flash, a few of Supergirl.
Yep.
And he was talking about in one of his stand-ups, like how they bring him in to a meeting before they start directing on the Monday that they start shooting, and they go over the show and what they're looking for in each of the script points. Talking
That makes
about
sense.
An up, it's a down, it's an up, it's a down. And that's one way that they keep continuity. They bring in all the producers. They bring in the showrunner. They bring in the UPM, the director, of course, the director of photography, who they're going to be working with. Usually they bring in one that they're comfortable with, because that's the right-hand man of the director, is the director of photography. The other person that they usually bring in on their own is their own first AD, which is assistant director, and they're the ones who run everything. They're the ones who keep everything on time. They're the ones making sure that, all right, we need to be shooting again in 5 minutes. He's making sure everybody's set in 5 minutes, so the director can walk on, and then we did the business.
You know, and it makes sense that they'd have it organized that way. It makes sense that if you're going to bring in not even necessarily journeyman directors, even established directorial talents like Kevin Smith, if you give people targets to shoot at within a production instead of just shutting the lights off and shoving them into a dark room, you're probably going to end up with a better result. That was one of the things we talked about pre-show before we went on, was how the difference in quality that we got out of Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. Both were awful for different reasons, but the Rise of Skywalker issue was that you didn't have any more time. You just had to you had to throw everything against the wall and hope something stuck. And for a lot of folks, myself included, nothing did. Yeah. But with no further ado, let's jump into Aldhani. So scene 1, we're opening up. It's Rael and Cassian are making their escape after they bailed from the shootout, barricade, blockade, thrilling conclusion to episode 3. They basically do some systems checks. They exchange a little bit of conversation. They kind of bring him up to speed, I believe, in this scene on what the job is going to be. Rael shows that he knows a little bit something about like the process that Andor is going to be going through. He's telling him to treat the wound on his arm. So we get a little bit of development between their relationship and what that's going to look like going forward as employer to employee. What do you think?
Yeah, the change in his what I thought his character would be. I thought he was gonna be like the spy master, mentor type person, where more than likely he's more of a headhunter. I'm taking, where he finds people with talent to start building what he needs for each of these missions, which we get alluded to later in both these episodes.
I think an important takeaway, we'll get it from Rael a little bit later within the episode, is that even if he's not going to do a whole lot of the spy mastering stuff on his own, he's 100% behind the cause. So like through the point of episodes 4 and 5, like he's vested in it. Like he has his own reasons, which I don't think they've disclosed concretely through the first 5 episodes. He hates the Empire. He hates the way the world is going. He's not going to do anything stupid or irrational to get himself killed and taken off the board, but he's in it to win it, as they say, for sure. So he's a fairly compelling character, and I'm definitely interested in seeing more out of him, since now we've seen him, or we'll see in a couple seconds, the multiple roles that he's able to play within the context of the show. So we jump right into the next scene here, and this is what I was saying pre-show also. I think this is the best. I think this is the best new addition to the show. Is we meet Lieutenant Daedra, I think her name was. She's
Miro.
Okay. So she's basically she's lieutenant within the ISB. She's a career power player. She's on the corporate ladder. She's trying to climb up. She's tasked with investigating the incident that went down on Ferrix. She suspects there's something larger going on. We see her having to play nicely in the sandbox at different junctions within the episode. They throw down like a pretty big council meeting, and we meet her boss. There's a lot going on in this. It's a fairly long scene. I believe it's like 5 or 6 minutes long out of the entire episode. That's a lot of screen time for her to come up. What did you think of the setup and getting a behind the curtain look at the Imperial, the Security Bureau? I thought they were fascinating in play.
Yeah, well, I took it as if you looked at the modern day CIA, it's broken in the same type of region. You have regional directors who are responsible for what's going on in that region. They're responsible for giving the reports and then controlling their assets inside that region. That's what I took of how that was broken down. The major who's in charge, I took him as like the director of the CIA. He's the one who reports up into the government, and also controls the day-to-day operations of his directors. As you can see, that they're in charge of different sectors and stuff like that. I don't believe she was actually charged with Ferris. She's trying to get into the investigation of Ferris. She's responsible for the shipyard.
Yes, she's responsible for the shipyard that the NavPath unit was stolen from. You're 100% right on that. That's my bad on that. Good call, because that's actually what sets up the conflict, is she's trying to get uppity with the guy that was in charge of Ferrix, that wanted to brush the whole thing under the rug. Dude, what do you think of the boss in... I think you said he was a major. Dude, he's got no time for anybody. Like, he is not having their bullshit.
He is a why don't you already have this on my desk type of person. I needed this 40 minutes ago, and I just told it to you now.
Yep,
person,
dude, 100%, dude. I love watching him, and I was mentioning earlier about like characters and their actors getting into, their personal politics bit, and I think that this scene showcases my objection to letting actors talk like that. Like, if the actress in real life wants to speak out about certain elements of our socio-political culture, the patriarchy and things like that, and then they always try to frame it like that's what they try to instill into their characters to make it recognizable or modernized for our age. And I feel like this scene dispels all of it. Because, the boss came in and he was an older white guy, but he shit on everybody uniformly in this situation. His analysis of her performance or the issue at hand, I thought was spot on. He was like, this is for you. He's delegating out the workload to people. He reminds her in a later scene that, her performance is good, that she came highly regarded. There's room for her to advance. Like, so when the actress wants to pop off about being a female stuck in the patriarchy with no room for advancement and, it's a boys club, I'm like, I didn't get that vibe at all. It was like she was butting heads with a lateral competitor for power. The boss shot them both down, but let them both operate their divisions, like you said, as they saw fit. Yeah. So I kind of hate when they go off the rails like that in real life.
And the other part that he pointed out is like he's controlling 12 sectors right now. How many do you have? 2?
Exactly.
So he's like, we're going to cut him some slack. He's going to do what he's going to do,
he's got
you
to
just worry about what you have to worry about.
Dude, exactly. And it's okay if the story progresses, and we're going to learn that she was right. But I don't think that's it's not a free pass for then the actors to lecture us in real life about the implications of her being a female in the Empire in Star Wars. Like, nobody cares. People are watching the show and enjoying it because you haven't injected that real life bullshit onto the screen yet. So I'll leave it at that, and that'll be our sidebar of politics for the day. Let me jump us ahead here, because that's a really long scene, dude. That was, I think, like 6 minutes. When we switch out, it's Cassian and Luth and Rail again. They've landed the ship at the destination. I think this is where Rail is setting up Andor and letting him know he's gonna go out and set up a deal with for him to join Vel's group. He should stay on the ship and let him handle the talking. And we'll see how it goes, kind of thing. But it does set up the interesting bit that there is a group. Vel's in charge of it, but nobody else in the group knows Rail's a thing. Yeah, like they're operating thinking Vel is kind of the payroll, the boss, the bronze, the brain, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and what did you think of Vel? On the walk back, you find that out on the walk back to camp after he's pretty much thrown on her. Yeah.
What did you think of Vel as a character? Any thoughts?
I think she's a unsure leader who's winging it the best she can.
Yeah, I agree on Vel. She seems like she's in it. She's down for the cause. She believes in some things. She's not paranoid, but hyper cautious, which is a good trait to have in her situation. She's probably learned some of that from Rail if they've been working together before. He's teaching her how to be effective, almost kind of like how Rail was talking to Bix when they were on Ferrix, where he was like, no, calm down, slowly, walk this way. And so he's kind of mentored younger leaders, I think, as they're coming up in the different roles within what's going to become the rebellion. But I like her as a character. She seems like she don't fuck around. Like, she's got zero shits given for stuff that goes off mission or that deviates from the plan.
Yeah,
so
the one downside I would say to her is that she bends easily. She doesn't just put her foot down. We
see some shades of that.
Yeah, so you see, like, they'll throw out a thing, and she's like, okay, we'll do that, and stuff like that. Now, if it's right, it's the job of a good leader to admit that they're wrong and take good advice. But at some of the things could have been like, and she did do that a few times, so I think she's just coming into her own. This might be like her first time on her own. So you're seeing those growing pains of being the leader, having all to make the calls, and
making mistakes, right? Like you mentioned. Mm-hmm.
And like these people's lives are depending on her. So
they're hung if they get caught.
Yeah. So this is a lot of pressure for her. So I can definitely see that she has the potential to be a great leader, but we're seeing her on her first steps out.
Dude, I dig her as a character 100% so far from what we've seen through the 2 episodes. And a lot of it is because of the reasons you just said, is that we see she's tough, but we know that if she's involved in this group at the age she's at, she's probably seen some shit. She's probably been through the ringer a little bit. So she's probably capable and competent because we know Rail is, and he wouldn't have hired her if she wasn't. Right? Yeah. So I think that any mistakes she makes in judgment or in walking back her positions on things, or exactly like you said, their character development moments and jump off points where she can learn and grow from these situations as they come up. So even if we get through the next 10 episodes of this show and she ends up doing some crazy piloting stuff or some crazy shootout shit, no one's going to call her a Mary Sue at this point, because through 2 episodes, we've seen how she has to interact with other people. And when she's not always charging head in first, like she's convinced her course of action is the right one to run with. So I think you're 100% right.
Yeah. One of the other things that we didn't talk about was before, Case comes out to talk to her, he gives Andor an out. He gives him that necklace that's worth 50,000. So it's like, even if this doesn't, you can go and you can pawn this. Don't take it set more than 50,000 for it. And he tells him what it is, and it means more to him. So he's like, I want it back. True. So it's like, if you're going to go through with this, come back alive and give me my necklace back. But if you do bail, this should get you at least 50,000.
Now, I'm glad you re-mentioned that part, because I totally slipped my mind. And I actually, in my show note that I had on another pad, I wanted to bring that up. Did you catch the name of what the stone was?
Sky Colomite. I think it's the same crystals that are used to make a lightsaber.
Kyber crystal, exactly correct. So automatically in my head it popped off, dude. Is Luthen Rail a former Jedi? Is this a thing? Is this there? Did the show leave themselves a mechanism by which they could introduce a Jedi presence that was lacking in Rogue One for a lot of people? Is that why it's special to him? Was he married to a Jedi or something? I don't know.
And that's one thing I actually really enjoy about this, is that there are no Jedi. There's no Force.
I like that about Rogue One myself. I didn't mind that.
Totally a standalone story in the Star Wars universe that has nothing to do with what held the Star Wars together.
Right. Dude, but again, I'm not the cynical, because I did enjoy it. I enjoyed thinking about and talking about now if it was an intentional labeling of the stone as that for that reason, that just in case they thought they needed a course correction, maybe even in season 2, who knows, but they've planted a logical jump off point for that to be a thing. That way, if they come up on episode 8 or something, there's not going to be a magical hidden cadre of Jedis that emerge from nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they are in this world the whole time. They took something very subtle, very small, but very readily not like acknowledgeable as being something Jedi adjacent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it also ties into Rogue One, because a majority of Rogue One takes place on Jakata, which is the birthplace of the Jedi.
Oh, that's right. That was.
And they farm the crystals, because I forget. I cannot say the name of the crystals, but
Kyber. Just Kyber.
Yeah, the Kyber crystals are the same thing that made the Death Star laser.
Oh, I must have lost that in the lore somewhere. I never knew that.
Yep.
Interesting. See, boys and girls, you learn something every day.
That's what made the laser from the Death Star so powerful. I wrote because it uses the Kyber crystals, which are connected to the Force. They're a physical representation of the Force.
That's pretty banging on the knowledge right there. I like it. So interesting things with it. See, this is what I appreciate about this show: subtle little things, as small as a necklace, a pendant, is going to become, and we see him still clinging to it in episode 5. So we know this. It's gonna come down to a point of contention at some point beyond episode 5, and we'll get to that when we get to there.
Yeah.
But next up on deck on the in episode 4 here, it's him dressing down the 3 dipshits from mall security. It's not.
Oh yeah, because he told him that because he in the board meeting earlier we were talking about this. He was talking about this, and he's like, "I'm heading out to take care of this." Like he already had the answers the major was looking for. You saw that he had the first 2 doofuses that are not living up to the standard he's laying down. Then he has this guy. This is like his golden child. That's why he's in charge of 12 sectors. And he's like, I'm heading out there to handle this now. And he's like, enough said.
And he lays the smack down on these 3 jabronis when he gets out there. Like these 3 dipshits are standing at like rigid attention. He dresses them down. I think it's Mosk is the heavy set guy that went with Karn on the actual mission in episode 3. Like at some point he raises his hand to speak, and I think the officer's just like, "Really?
Are you serious right now?"
Like say nothing, right? So basically, the entirety of mall security is basically fired. We get a look that later on that the Empire is actually sending ISB forces to replace mall security on Ferrix. That'll be some stuff that comes up later, obviously. So that's pretty quick. Karn gets fired. He's in a bit of a rough spot. We don't actually see more of him for a little bit.
To the very end of the episode.
To the very end of the episode. And it does end up at one of my dislikes for the episode, but we'll get into that. Just want to, in the name of getting things done a little quicker today, I'm going to gloss over some stuff here. We get a scene. It's the walk back to camp you were talking about with Andor and Vel. They have their little back and forth about, I think they're talking things about like trust and rail and what the objective is and why are you really here and who are you, and it's little cat and mouse stuff. Nice to see the development between the 2. They'll probably end up best friends and get matching tattoos. Who knows? What'd you think of these 2 working off each other?
I think it worked well. I think this is where he figured out that they're attacking a full garrison to get the payroll. He's like, this is suicide. To take down a full garrison, and there's like 7 of us.
Yeah. And from what we see, throughout the episode in episode 5 is that they have a guy on the inside. They have a couple of stolen uniforms that they're going to use to breach security with, but they're not exactly packing heavy firepower. There's no orbital bombardment coming in. There's no stealth escape that's likely going to, well, actually I guess the plan is a stealth escape, but like they're under geared for the situation would be like the odds not working in their favor for sure. What do we got up next? Up next we have Daedra's going over the reports with one of her subordinates about the nav unit and other things that have gone missing. And this is where she starts to put together the trend of things, I think.
Yeah, she's realized that she was trying to find out the star pad that was obtained on Ferris.
Yep.
She referred it to the one that was stolen from a shipyard that she's responsible for, and she connects the 2. She's like, it has to be the same. So she's trying to be brought in on the Ferris so she can close out the investigation on her shipyard.
Yeah, and I don't want to beat the dead horse on this particular character any more than I did earlier, but again, these are the kind of scenes that I do enjoy. She's doing, even though it's book work and research, things like that, she's doing something logical and interesting that pertains to her job, that's in line with what I would think like a junior officer in, like you said, an intelligence setting, or even just a corporate setting. Like if you were working, human resources and investigating something within your business, these are the things you would do. You have to do the grunt work of reviewing invoices and requisitions and call logs to figure out who's where and who's probably responsible for losing an important piece of technology. So when people call the show a slow burn, I'm with you on the slow burn stuff, but some of the things within the slow burn are kind of like the DNA that make the story work, and her putting these pieces together to unravel a possible conspiracy, that's interesting shit to me. I don't mind that at all.
And you and me, we grew up reading people like Tom Clancy, Vince Flynn, where you have multiple timelines that are screwing together to make one until they all meet at the end.
Yep.
Like you're following the bad guy and what they're doing. You're following Jack Ryan, what he's doing. You usually have a military element. That's what they're doing at the same time. Then you have like the third guy who's actually the true bad guy who's been funding the whole bad thing. So you're following all of this around until it comes to its climax in the last 5 chapters. And I think this writing team has done this perfectly to draw all these together to keep the whole conspiracy and, well, the story going, tracking multiple characters who have an impact on this story to keep it until they all meet together again in the climax.
Agreed. And I think you mentioned a couple of really good ones from the military sci-fi side of the house. I think there's probably no better modern example, like most modern example, than just Game of Thrones. George Martin does that, where he's got 1,200 page tomes that basically have recurring what would be side characters to anybody else, carrying their own subplots effectively. And most of the books that he's published in that series, they're enjoyable to actually sift through, because you do have to track multiple POVs, but it's proof that the storytelling, when done by talented people, works, and the payoff is immense.
Yeah, and we see how they're willing to move together. Like, everyone has their little subplot, but when it's over, it's over. They don't keep them around because they're a fan favorite, or they start making up stuff to keep people around. The most notable is in The Walking Dead, the Dylan character.
Oh, good point.
He was supposed to be a side character who came in. He had the nostalgia from Boondock Saints, but all of a sudden he was such a fan favorite that, like, oh, we gotta get more screen time. We gotta get more screen time. So they started making up stuff that wasn't in the initial story. And this one, it looks like they're willing to drop people. Like, I haven't seen bits in 2 episodes.
It's good, and that actually might be a good point of contention to talk about later. About as this story is moving along, are we ever going to circle back to anything that get the thing started, or are we just going to is this just going to be like a bullet train, straight down a track? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But coming up in the next bit here, this is another touchstone scene that I wanted to talk about here, because I definitely dug this whole thing. And the whole scene coming up here, it's Rail getting ready for the next stage of his journey within the birth of the rebellion. And what remains to be seen is he returning to his baseline life as normal, or is he playing a role? Because we see him putting on costume jewelry, changing his attire into something more upscale than a traveler's cloak. He puts on a wig, and he does this little flourish when he's done in the mirror, where it's like his smile lights up, and the man can act. That's the thing, is he's transitioning between playing the spy master, smuggler, recruiter guy into somebody else. And I dug every second. And it's not even that long of a scene. There's no dialogue. Nope. Nobody else is in it. But it's just him being an actor within the show. Like, he's an actor. Obviously, he's acting in real life. Yeah. The character is also an actor, and he's effective, and it's going to be good. And then we get to see what he's up to.
Not a word said in the whole scene either.
No, not a single one.
You knew exactly what was happening, especially when he did the little flourish, and then he went back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He was like,
shows
okay,
on.
This is how I gotta get back to this person.
100%.
Yeah, it was awesome. I really enjoyed that. It was a really good scene.
I had a feeling you'd dig that one too. Just like, it's connected. It's worthwhile connective tissue.
Yeah.
All right, dude. I'm gonna just swing through a little bit more. We get a little bit more of Andor and Vel. They're popping a squat, drinking some water. It's a long walk back. Anything you wanted to pick up on that? Nothing off the top of my head. It was just more of them figuring themselves out.
I think the only real plot point in that was the TIE fighter that flew by.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And it was like, why are they patrolling this area? Which a conversation that pops up later.
Yep.
So that they are in danger. Through this whole thing. Like, this isn't just, we're gonna sneak in, they don't even know we're coming. They have patrols out.
Zone, right?
It's a very heavy contested area of this planet.
I'll throw in a little bit of now that you meant, when we phrase it like that, I'll throw in a little bit extra like sauce on it. Like, it's one of those things that, for me, in a crappy show, they wouldn't have had that little bit with the TIE fighter. And then, like, a squad of them would have just descended on the escape, and you'd have been like, oh, well, were there always TIE fighters here? Like, where did they come from? Was there a base? Was there a carrier? Like, what's the what? But we've already seen these guys identify a particular route that they know they have to be careful on, and that they likely have to avoid going forward. So it's been effectively foreshadowed that there's an element of known danger that could mess with them if something goes wrong, or if they just get unlucky. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. We're gonna zip ahead here. This is the scene I was talking about before between Daedra and her competitor. I didn't catch his name. I apologize. I'm just gonna call him the competitor for here. But he basically busts her balls from the time she walks through the door. I have it up on screen here, where it's like she's trying to get info from him, and he basically just responds with, "I suggest you make an appointment to come and talk to like a colleague." I'm like, the balls on this effing guy right here. this is the part of the show that I think right now I'm enjoying the most. It's exactly what I thought Andor was going to be for the bad guys. It's the politicking and the ladder climbing. I'm sure that if they play their cards right and they're smart, they should have some literal backstabbing that goes on. There should be, this guy should die. One of her lackeys should absolutely hood him and throw him off a railing or something and get him killed. It needs to embrace its House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones ability here. Make these people ruthless, and I'll root for them the entire part of the effing show. I don't know, maybe what's your read on these guys, on these two working together here?
Yeah, you could definitely see that this is a very power-based government. We knew this because we knew the Empire coming into this series, but you get to see the inner workings of it. You saw a little bit with like Grand Tarkin and the inside his little, like when they were in the Death Star and his cronies and talking about like people moving up and like the one guy trying to punch Vader and Vader chokes and like I'm the guy in charge here,
still
not
awesome.
you.
Oh, that part's still good. I just actually watched the first half of that the other day for the hell of it, and I was like, yeah, no, that's still awesome. So I'm definitely digging. See, my concern with the show was that the ISB and everything on the internal was going to just be some really boring paper pushing stuff that didn't add up to anything. Yeah. But they're creating character conflict between Daedra and the competitor. There's some general conflict between her and her boss, even though he's not a stereotypical one-dimensional douche nozzle at this point. Because, like I said, he actually gave her a couple of compliments, in the conversation they had. I think it's later in this episode. No, it was just before that, or it's around there. She basically talks with the boss, and he doesn't just shut her down right away. He actually hears her out. Yeah,
and he is Lieutenant Supervisor Belvin.
That was the competitor, Belvin?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you doing the logistics of all this stuff, by the way. Good man. So we're running forward here. We're coming up on Vel's camp. Oh, rebels. The first dude's asleep, so his buddy rolls on him and basically catches him at gunpoint, sleeping. The other guy says, "Don't dime me out to Vel." He goes, "I won't, but you have to, self-report and this and that."
You will.
So you will, yep. So it's all right. What do we get here? We get their guy on the inside coming in on a speeder bike, I think, if I'm rolling it forward.
Well, you have meet the team. You had the whole meet the team part, and the whole why are you bringing in someone new 3 days out type thing.
Mm-hmm. True. That's right. The device that wasn't them. That wasn't the speeder that was subtitled in the scene I was looking at. That's later. You're right. This is just him meeting the group as a whole here.
Yeah, now, and the birth of the mistrust between everybody.
Yep. Now, what do you think of the team here? For me, real quick, I like that you get a little bit of everybody in here, and again, this is what I think that they can get away with like what we call like organic diversity. There's a lot of box checking in this scene, but none of it looks like it's there for any particular reason, so I don't care that there's a black dude in the group and what looks to be she could be Hindu. I'm not sure. There's a darker skinned female that's in the group, and I'm pretty sure she's Vel's girlfriend. By the end of episode 5, they kind of hint at that. They don't actually get into it specifically or graphically, but the group is fairly representative of people, and it looks like a ragtag group of people down for a cause. Over the 2 episodes, we get hints of why the different. Actually, it's in episode 5 really, where the two white dudes, their particular backstories. One of them's your typical younger freedom fighter guy, and the other one lost a family member. A brother committed suicide because of the Empire, some shit like that. We'll get into that later. I had a specific that I wanted to point out here that was annoying to me enough that I wanted to like more about, like you said, the meeting the team scene, but I didn't think there was enough to it for me to really sink my teeth into. But one of the things that really chapped my ass about this scene are the firearms these two guys are holding. And I don't know if you have it open, but I'll send you the picture. Dude, could they have been any more obvious? Yeah, that was the thing I mentioned a week ago.
I'm like, is this
are they AK
slug
like, are they AK variants? Like what? Yeah, they want it to be that, but it's very obviously an unmodified AK real life variant of a rifle. And dude, this came up in the Halo series. I don't remember if you watched any of that. I won't get too far down that rabbit hole. But like in the first episode of Halo, they had like unmodified like Toyota Tundras or Chevy Tahoes or something being driven around like the human base camp, and I'm like, It's 600 years later. How do you have Toyota Tundras rolling around like they no body work at all? Yeah, I guess it's still a Toyota, but I mean here, this isn't 500 years in humanity's future. This is a galaxy far, far away. Like there's a reason their planes and their ground vehicles and pretty much anything that isn't clothing for humans doesn't look like that shit. So when I got these two guys holding like, you know, AK-74Us or whatever they are, I'm like, oh no. Prop department, you had $40 billion. Slap some plastic and crazy glue on this shit. Make it a blaster. But no, dude.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with the one that definitely looked like it was just a straight slug thrower that had nothing. It wasn't Star Wars-esque.
Yeah, dude, it looked like gorillas in like gorillas in the woods, like just your regular rando band of freedom fighters or terrorists or whomever, like, you know, whoever you want it to be. And
yeah.
I'm like, but whatever. It's not enough for me not to like the show. But we get Andor kind of introduces himself as Clem to the group. They kind of ask him a couple basic questions to get the lay of the land. I don't know. Break me down. What happened in this scene, dude?
It was the whole team meetup. It's a standard type thing you see in these type of movies or in in books. It's just meet the team, and it's going to have a whole bunch of distrust, which plays with the genre of this, which is a spy thriller,
100%.
Action thriller. It's that's set in a sci-fi world.
Yeah.
So yeah, because when you're in a small unit like that, small unit tactics come in. And everyone has their role. When you throw in someone new, what is their role? Who's gonna pick up the slack that they're gonna be? Because everyone has their own slack as well. So this is another liability as well as an asset. Because if he gets hurt, he now knows all of them on the way there.
True.
Like, is he gonna be in on the plan? Is he a plant? There's a lot of questions. So I could definitely see the build of distrust in there. Even with the leader vouching for him because she knows where he came from and who brought him in. That's why she has trust for him.
But she was instructed not to tell them.
Yeah.
And to play it off like it was her idea.
And
so that's a little interesting bit.
And which made sense because she's the one who's leading them into combat, not him. Yep. So they have to look at her like this is her doing this. Also, if there's a overall leader, which they talked about, and you'll see more with the Imperial Senate as they're talking. Not the Senate, but the Imperial, the CIA
ISB.
of them.
ISB, yep.
ISB.
Imperial Security Bureau, yep.
Yeah, you'll see it them heading towards it. If you don't, like, great movie, Arlington Road.
Yep.
And they said what makes people more feel safe is that it's a lone actor instead of a group. Because if you start throwing in that conspiracy, fear grows even more. But if
everybody's in on it.
But if they pawn it off on one person, then they'd stop looking. Like they're not looking for more people. They're not looking for a group. So that's why he's not supposed to be mentioned. That's what I took from that. And Clem could be brought in as the scapegoat as well. Like he's the guy who's going to supposed to take the fall from this.
Interesting, and hopefully that turns out to be what actually happens, because that'd be a nice little organic plot twist that makes sense within the genre, like you said, and it wouldn't be as cookie cutter as Star Wars can sometimes be. So
yeah,
I'd be up for that. Let's keep ripping along here, guy. So the next scene is basically we get Karn. He has been fired. He's got his luggage. He's basically, you know, on their version of like the bus system, and we end up with him heading home. He knocks on some older woman's door. We get the impression, I don't think they use the term, but it's obviously his mom, and he's moving back into his mama's basement, into Mama's Star Wars basement, because he's been fired. He takes it like a champ a little bit.
Yeah, it's a moment you can see that he's not close with his family, but it's still Mama's little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. That's all
dude,
I really got from that.
I had a problem with this. You know me, dude. I have a problem with taking like every male character, especially the lighter their skin gets. I'm afraid this dude's getting reverted back to like butt of the joke situation. I think when we get to episode 5, I'll have more to say about that. I don't need to see this kind of real life stuff in my Star Wars. And I was thinking as we were setting up for the show, the last couple of days, setting up, get ready to do it. I think a lot of people, if I complain about this on Twitter or something, are going to be like, well, you didn't have a problem when Luke was like crying at the table about wanting to, go to Tashi Station to get the power converters, or he wanted to join the academy and everything else. I'm like, but he was 17 years old. This is a grown dude, 30, 32. I don't know. He's in his 30s somewhere, probably, or late 20s, 30s. He's a career guy. Like, he doesn't need to be on the receiving end of like overbearing, stereotypical Jewish mom stereotype. And I kind of hate it. This cuts too close to real life American culture that I see in sitcoms. So for me, I'm right back to calling this dude mall security. I hope this is temporary, and whatever he gets into himself in the next segment of episodes is back to like the 1,000-yard stare. I realized I fucked up and now I need to go do something about this kind of character. But this down point, no.
I don't like it. This goes into showing who he was, why he was so big on to prove himself.
Oh, all right.
You have that overbearing mother who has, which we find out later in the next episode, family connections that actually, have power. And he's also, they don't believe in him.
True. That's fair. That's a fair point.
This could be just showing who he is, and then, as we'll talk about in the next episode, what it pushes him to become.
Unless he snaps Norman Bates styles in the next episode and shoots this chick before he moves out, like hopefully he capitalizes to like an extent. This is that kind of show. If this show wants me to enjoy it, it needs to mirror some, and I'll reference it again. It needs to mirror Game of Thrones in certain ways. It doesn't need to go all the way down the Game of Thrones marathon. It doesn't need to be graphically brutal in any of the violence it depicts. It doesn't need to get into any of the weird Targaryen incest stuff or anything like that. But it needs to it can't pull any punches for me. Otherwise, it just comes across as kind of kiddie and sanitized, and I don't want that from this show. I don't mind it on The Mandalorian. Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi for all of their faults. Like, I don't mind if they get a little cartoony with some of the violence that they have to do in their show. But this one needs to hit hard. No mercy. Needs to be some Cobra Kai shit up in here.
Now, did it happen in this episode or the next one where Mon Mothma meets with him at the antique store?
That's this one. I think we're getting into that now, I think.
Okay, I thought him going home was the end of the episode. I thought that's what ended the episode.
I'm scrolling down the time bar. No.
No? Okay.
Nope. It's definitely not this one. Because up next, after he's done moping with Mom, we get more scenage of Andor with the group. I think they're going over the basics of the plan. It looks like. I don't remember specifically. I'm pretty sure that's what they were talking about in there. Do you have any notes on that? It's basically Andor integrating into the group to some extent here.
Yeah, and then also you get the whole of what's going to happen. They start laying out the plan to them.
It's basically like the basics of the plan. Mm-hmm. The next scene is the antique store. It's right after that.
Okay.
And this is a big one because it's Mon Mothma showing up for the first time, in a non-Star Wars film, and I love this. Mon Mothma shows up. She's obviously high society. She's got a Cadillac space hover limo with a driver. She comes in like completely dolled up to like the 9. She's looking great. Yep. She sees Luthen Rail in his dippy wig and the flowy robes kind of thing, like they're on Coruscant. Wait, are they on Coruscant on this?
Yeah, they're on Coruscant.
That's okay. So they're on, which by the way looked awesome. When they had the establishing shot coming in
from the
build,
planet, and then the drone flyover.
Yes. Dude, how much better was this than Coruscant and Kenobi? It's undisputable, guy. I ought to send you a side-by-side that way you could throw it up here for this part of the thing. It looked it looked real. Yeah. I know it's CGI at that point and it's not a practical set model, but the aerial stuff looked effing real. It was amazingly done.
And
I'll give that all the praise.
Yeah, it goes once to show when someone cares about a project, how much more detail goes into the project.
Dude, when I was watching this live on the first pass, dude, I was like, I basically picked the pen up off of like the couch I was sitting on. I was keeping notes. Dude, gave him a mic drop because I'm like looking around for the audience and I'm like, this is how it's fucking done. You can't just throw up, like we were saying, like stucco and plyboard and paint it sand colored and call it like Tatooine. Like, no, do this. More of this. You guys have the fucking money. Like, spend it where it counts, and it counted here. But landscaping aside, Mon Mothma rolls in. She's there under the pretenses of buying like an antique gift for her husband or a friend or a colleague or whatever. And her and Rael have like a back and forth of what you think that like a high priced commodity broker or store owner, how they would talk to an established socialite. Dude, it was great. So as they're talking, they're walking closer and closer to the back of the store. Her driver or her attendant goes off with like the shop clerk, and they're looking at some other shit. And the minute Mon Mothma and Rael walk around into the private area in the back where he says, "Oh, I have something he might like in the back here," the conversation changes mid-sentence, and they get like right down to business, right down to it, and they get into all the good stuff of like what this show is, it hopefully becomes, where it's like, dude, the rebellion is boned. Like, there's nothing given in this world to them. It's hard for them to move money. It's hard for them to recruit. It's hard for them to establish a presence anywhere because the Empire is powerful.
Yeah, powerful and everywhere.
Dude, dude, they're a big effing brother in a galaxy far, far away.
And that's one reason why they had to go to the back room, and the store clerk, who you can definitely tell who's in on it.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh, that's not a secret. That comes through.
She had to,
but she don't trust the driver for sure,
because the driver is new, which is probably an Imperial spy.
And she mentions that because she's not stupid either. She's another great example of a well thought out character who, in her position, would have to be semi-paranoid. And she says it when she's lamenting about how hard it is for even her to be an active participant now, because I don't recognize half of the faces when I go to work. There's new people in and out every day or every 6 months or whatever she said. And like, dude, my driver, he's new. Dude, you're exactly right, dude. That's exactly the kind of paranoia you get in the genre. It's perfectly done.
And then and she's a senator. Even if she wasn't part of the rebellion, the Emperor would have spies in everybody's camp to know exactly what's going on. That's how you maintain power. I hate to say it, but it's a true statement.
Yeah, it's 100% a true statement. And even if she, and like to your point, even if she wasn't a senator, the best way you keep tabs on the rich and famous are to put plants where the rich and famous go. And a high commodity antiquities kind of dealership, that's where the fuck they'd be going.
Yep. And then as soon as they mess up, then you can dethrone them and take the power.
Boom. Consolidate their resources, RICO their money. So, dude, this whole bit was great, and just to touch on like the conversation they have in the back, without giving away any more story specifics, I think they just did a great job. When they switch conversations, when they get in the back, he drops the foo-foo accent, like where he's talking all high society. He just gets that gravel back in his voice, and I'm like, my man, right there. I like Skarsgård in this role. I wasn't sure how it was gonna go because sometimes you just actors rub you the wrong way. I know he's great. I know he's a great actor, but sometimes you just don't think they mix into certain things. But his worked here.
You gotta let him surprise you sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. Next scene is the one I was thinking about earlier when I said with the speeder bike. So we're back on Andor's camp, and the last member of their group shows up, and as it turns out, it's Lieutenant Gorn of the Imperial. I don't know if he's ISB or if he's actually if he's Imperial Navy because his uniform's gray. So I think he might be Imperial Navy.
He's Imperial Army.
Army. I thought it was all. I thought they only had Navy for whatever.
No, they have Army too. The Stormtroopers are actually considered Army.
Oh, true. Yeah, it makes sense. I guess the Navy's just the space combat stuff.
Yeah.
So whichever, he's a man on the inside. He's an Empire guy. He's a turncoat. He's down for the rebel cause. They explain, I think it's in this episode, that basically he went native. He fell in love with a local. She was killed by the Empire under whatever circumstances, I think.
They said that is the theory about him, of what he actually happened. But okay. Yeah, it builds in the next episode. So you'll see that their theory is true, because you can see little points about it throughout the next episode.
Yeah, we'll hit the crux of them then.
They didn't actually say that until they were moving camp to set up the calm before the storm. Is when they actually said why he was in on it, to get Andor to calm down a little bit about his distrust for him, as everyone distrusts Andor. The only one who actually trusts Andor, Clem, is the kid.
The kid. Do we have a little minor sidebar? Do we have a cast list for the squad here?
Yeah.
You said the ISB guy was Bevlin.
Yeah, Belvin.
We have Vel. She's the leader. Cinta is her girlfriend. Gorn is the Imperial guy. Yeah. I don't have the other three guys' names.
Nimic is the kid.
Yep,
Skeen
Nimic is the kid.
Is the brute.
Yep.
And I'm trying to find
Who's the other black dude?
Like, he doesn't have
Tamarin?
a picture in here.
I think it's Tamarin, as a matter of fact.
Tamarin?
I remember the subtitle. Tamarin with the T. Yeah, I remember from the subtitle.
Oh, yeah, Tamarin right here.
Yeah,
he's in a group picture. That's why I couldn't pick him out. Yeah, Tamarin Barcora. So he's the only one who's actually called by his first name. Everyone else is called by their last name.
Oh, interesting. But and again, dude, it's Star Wars side character, so I'm not going to remember their last name. Whatever they
more
get
than
called.
Likely, I say 70% of them die.
Yep. Let's see. Well, it's Rogue One. It's pre-Rogue One. So probably. Yeah. So basically, Gorn shows up. They have kind of a repeat of the who's Andor and why is he here, like you said. They're trying to sort out all their let's all play nice in the sandbox stuff, and it's kind of a jump off point for everything that's going to go down in episode 5, and probably, like you said, if the heist happens in episode 6, we'll probably get a lot of resolution for a couple of these guys. Would be my guess, because I don't think, like you said, I don't think a lot of them are getting out of the heist, but I also don't think the heist is going to be the season finale of this show. I think there's going to be more to it than that. I don't think they stretch out this preparation bullshit, for much longer than they already have. All right, so we're gonna wrap up, I think, with the last couple of scenes. Oh no, there's a couple more. The next one up is Mon Mothma on the home front. I didn't like this part either, guy. This for the same reason I didn't like the Karn going home to her family thing. I don't care what these characters' family lives looks like. We got Mon Mothma in her downtown, badass apartment with her obvious metrosexual, debutante, high society husband, who is a complete beta, who defers to her for everything, who looks like he couldn't be less interested in their marriage. They argue over a dinner party because he invited some of her political rivals that she got into it with, and I'm just like, no. Again, I get that we needed to see more of Mon Mothma, but I think that the interactions that define her for me would have been seeing these political challengers, would have been seeing her at work in a Senate meeting, in session or something like that, and being a leader. The dinner table shit loses me completely in this show. Same, different, what do you think?
Unlike how I defended Karn and meeting his mom, I can't defend this.
Yep.
Other than it's a setup for the next episode, which is a really bad setup.
Yep.
But it does... you can definitely tell that he has no care in her. It's like he's married to her because she's rich.
Yep.
He is the trophy husband type thing.
Oh, dude, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, and you didn't tell that she takes what she does in the Senate seriously, as well as what she does behind the scenes seriously.
And this dude's high society. And
he only cares about having fun. Oh, maybe they just sit down here by me because they're fun, and she's not.
Oh, dude, that was a line too, and I'm like, oh no, it was like the first appearance of like modern Western dialogue, or how we talk in real life into Star Wars, and I'm like, no, stop. But it is what it is, guy. But again, I won't call it filler, because again, I think we both as writers, we understand what they were trying to do here was to add a dimension of complexity to Mon Mothma. So I guess they can prove that they don't have to write a female that's a soldier. So I guess they accomplished their goal.
I believe the use of the husband in this is the way that she can explain what she's doing without having inner dialogue.
Oh, she's the Watson. Got it. All right. True. So the next scene up here, I'm rolling it through, is we're back with the Andor group. They have a little scale model that they've built in their little ragtag base. They're running basically over they're starting to let him in on the specifics of the plan as it pertains to the ship they're going to use, the little freighter. Excuse me. They mentioned that Vel said that he could pilot, he's accepting of the role, things like that, but he points out some logistical issues between this episode and episode 5. And I think this is where they also mentioned the atmospheric window that they're going to use to get out. Does that come up
because
here?
he was like, they have TIE fighters.
Right.
And,
that are
and
fast.
and they're explaining it's 9 minutes. You have 9 minutes is the window.
Yeah.
And then they explain what they're using as cover to get out, which calms his fears down. Like, oh, that does make sense.
And it's kind of cool and creative in terms of the end in what they're doing. It's not like because I feel like sci-fi and thriller shit generically get down to like, well, we'll EMP their scanners and that'll get you out of here. But why didn't it EMP your ship? You know, or we'll cut the power, and it's always the same shit. So the atmosphere, like they're using the planet against the Empire,
which is
that's kind of cool.
Which is even a bigger build because of the people who come to witness this, which is, a huge like religious type thing for the natives there that they displaced. So they're using something that they displaced against them to rub it in their face even more, which is amazing.
Good point, dude. Nailed it. Dude, good point. That's solid planning there. I think we get to the second to last scene here. I think this is the conversation between it was Deidre. Was that the ISB? The blonde officer's name? And Bevlin. I'm just gonna say their names wrong. You can correct me every time I go. Is they're having their group session with the boss, and he basically smacks them both down. And then after Bevlin's gone, this is the point where the boss basically says, and actually I just freeze framed it up here on my screen, where he says, you come highly regarded. You're supposed to be, I expect you to be like more competent and tucked away. Like, stay out of sight, do your job. We know you're good at it. I think there's a line in here where he's like, you have a future here. Like we need, I think he says, we need officers like you to make this work.
Yeah.
So again, I don't see the actress's whole, like, I'm stuck in an organization with a bunch of dudes that are stupid, that are holding me down. And like, that's not the impression I got from literally anybody. Even the guy she's competing with basically only told her stay in her lane because she's the new person on the job. And
don't
she's
use
junior.
me to climb the ladder, I think was his term.
Dude, exactly. And I'm like, dude, this isn't a fight the patriarchy theme here. Like, your boss thinks you're good, and this dude's probably afraid of you, the competitor. Like, you're a little cutthroat, even for us. Like, fucking pump the brakes.
Yeah, he did have a great line. He's like, maybe you should make sure the ladder's steady before you try to climb it.
You did that. Yeah, that was like the first. I think that was like one of the first things he said. Yeah. Dude, it was a good line. Dude, it was definitely a good line. So they have that little exchange, and he sends her on her way. And as we see in episode 5, she's not giving up on just sweeping all that shit under the rug, which is good. And then I think the last bit here is Andor is talking with, we get a little bit, he's talking with Tamarin about using like the proper guidance equipment. Can you really fly this kind of stuff? Just fast forward a little bit later. I think that's about it. It's basically just ends on Cassian like taking first watch by the fire, I think, as he sorts out what he's gotten himself into.
Yeah.
Anything else with that?
No,
I think it wrapped up kind of quietly.
Yeah. Which these 2 episodes, 4 and 5, are that calm. Like you got stage 1, they get together now. They've already been planning. Now it's time to start getting to that execution planning part, where you get down to the, all right, I put my hand here and you put your hand there type planning from what they've been planning, where they have like, timeline. Which they
broad topics, broad components of the plan.
They're going from your broad strokes to your fine strokes.
They're tuning. Yeah. Final thoughts on the episodes, like best parts, worst parts, and then we'll rate it because I know my brother's going to be looking for a rating on this one.
All right, I think
best and worst.
I think the best part was the transformation of Rail. Was the absolute best. Just watching someone do his craft, no words had to be said, let the music and his action
on his ship, not the conversation transform with my mouth. Okay, the earlier scene definitely got didn't mean to interrupt you, but
and the worst one, I will have to agree with you, is her home life scene, which I understand what they were trying to do. It could have, like, the actors did a great job. He played his role to the nines of being that, pretty much you just say that fleety-headed blonde type character.
He was awful.
And her being the career-oriented absentee, probably a little bit.
Well, we get that in episode 5. Yeah, that comes up in episode 5, dude.
So I'd have to say just the writing of that scene was a little off.
Yeah,
And I
felt
think
very
that's the
modern
first
American show.
misstep of the whole series. Overall, I liked the episode. I would give it because of that one scene, like a 3.8 out of 5.
Okay, good. 3.8 out of 5. All right. I think for me, so we have a couple different things to go through, so I won't crib off your test. I definitely did like the Rail transformation as he's dressing up for the role was definitely dope as fuck. So don't get me wrong, it's not that I didn't like that. If I had to pick something else that I took away that I thought was good, I think that a close second for me would have been the kind of the three-way introduction of Rail and Andor and Vel. I like we were talking about earlier, where everybody's in the dark about something that's going on with this mission. We don't know if Rail might be setting Andor up to take a fall. Maybe the crystal's real, maybe it's not, who knows. I like that Rail sprung that on Vel, that you're gonna have this extra dude come in. And if you remember, he tells him specifically, like, you're hired as the backup guy in case someone goes down. That's the first thing he says. But by the end of the episode, we're seeing that, it's like Tamarin's asking him if he can pilot, and then he's actually getting him up to speed on learning the nav, the computer part. Where it's like, so is someone getting like the pork job here? Like, is one of these guys getting killed on like an inside jobberoo? Like, there might be some shady shit going on. So I definitely like that part, and how basically Rail prepped him to, like, dude, just stay on the ship, stay quiet. I'm gonna go sort this shit out. We'll see how it goes. And then Vel basically delivers. Like, she seems authentically tough. You know what I mean? This definitely isn't a crack on the actress's appearance. Like, I'm sure she dolls up really well. Like, she seems like she's probably fairly attractive, but they have her not in a bunch of makeup. Her hair's a wreck. She looks like she's wearing outdoor gear, so she seems authentically rugged for what they're doing. I like that. Like, when the word for it, I think, is verisimilitude. Like, where you could figure something is real where you're seeing it. It doesn't look like a makeup and hair crew went over her, and we expect to believe that they've lived outside in like a forest camp for like 8 weeks while they're getting ready. So I like that whole meeting of them three being in the same place. Dude, worst part, 100% agree. I got to steal off your test on this one. Everything Mon Mothma that was at home was trash, and it comes up again next episode. We'll hit that after a quick break, believe me. But dude, I just don't like it. I don't need to see their home life unless literally those characters are being fridged in the next 10 seconds, Beru and Owen style, and it literally motivates. Like, I'm all about fridging characters as motivation. Revenge is a great motivation.
Yep.
Like, we don't need every character in something doesn't need to be developed with 42 subplots and crazy long backstories. Like, if the husband needs to die in a flaming hover wreck, good. I don't care. Whatever is gonna get that shit out of the story is fine with me, because it drags everything interesting to a halt.
Yep.
When that came up. So I could have done without that. I think if I'm rating this one, I think I dislike that enough where I'm going to go a little bit lower. That I think I can only give this 3 AK-47 not blasters out of 3 AK-47 not blasters, because it just, between that and the Karn mom thing, I'm like, no, this isn't a galaxy far, far away. This is like the Upper East Side. Like, no, I can't do this. But all right, dude, why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back at you with Andor Episode 5. Dude, save me on the title. I don't remember. I think it's The Axe Forgets.
The Axe Forgets.
Nailed it. And we'll be right back.